Good morning, everyone. I guess I talk a little more than Bob and Matt do, so I didn't get quite through everything. I will try to just show you stuff that maybe is unique to this area, and a lot of it has been probably covered already in the other groups. So we'll start out with group 3, or Edge, or ethylfluralin. Been around a long time, and it's still a really important product in terms of, and will be an important product in the future to manage herbicide-resistant weeds. It's been sold by Dow to Gowan, and so Gowan is the company that actually makes Avidex as well, and Gowan's very committed to keeping this product on the market, so that's a good sign. In terms of symptomology, what you look for is it mainly works on grass species. It can have some effect on some broadleaf species, of course, as well, but I'll just show you the symptoms on the grass species. So it works on the emerging coleoptile, and the coleoptilar sheath here, and it basically prunes that back, okay? Now this one, so this should be a little more swollen, but even so, this is an oat. This is starting to leaf out a little early, and will probably die because it won't make it through the soil surface, okay? If it does make it through, and it's because it's not totally activated or whatever, then what you'll find is that the root development is really compromised. So in this situation, it's not forming any crown roots, see, at the node, the subcrown inner node. And if it does, the roots tend to be, these ones aren't quite as good, but these ones are good. They tend to be very stubby and don't amount to much. So later in the year, if you get some heat stress and that sort of thing, these won't do very well. So they're there, but they're not that competitive. So if you're not happy with it, you know, take a look and see what's the root development looking like on your wild oats. So
in a wet year, will that produce seed?
Yes, likely will survive. Depends how competitive your crop is. You know, like if you're in a really competitive canola crop, it's probably fine. You know, in a lentil crop, it'll probably likely survive. Yeah, and produce some seed. It won't be as much as, you know. Okay, I'll just pass this around. You can take a look at them. Yeah. Okay, so sulfentrazone's a group 14. Of course, peas are tolerant. Certain beans can be tolerant, but not completely tolerant. We found injury on pinto beans and that, so it's been tough to kind of get a registration for beans because the different classes respond differently to sulfentrazone. So, did you see the symptoms over there on sulfentrazone? So, you kind of familiar with any questions in terms of authority that we'll move on. Not, I don't want to, unless we have something that's completely where we've got really good symptomology. So, okay, so peroxysulfone is a group 15. So one thing, you know, Bob talked about, we're not getting new herbicide groups, you know, new herbicide modes of action, but we are seeing some new groups to Western Canada, relatively new groups. So, I mean, group 14 and 15 have been around for 30 years, but we haven't used them that much in Western Canada. And so peroxysulfone is a group 15. Some bean growers may have used Frontier dimethenamide, which is a group 15, but there's not that much been used. And so a group 15, it's soil active as well, requires moisture. I don't know, again, did you get much of a talk on this? Its strength is on the brome species. So if you're a winter wheat grower, downy brome, Japanese brome, great product for that. Wild oats, you get about 70% on average. It's good on green foxtail, has activity on barnyard grass as well, quite good activity on both. Broadleaf weeds, it's variable. You'll get shepherd's purse has some control, particularly if you put it on in your winter wheat. Stinkweed, not that bad. Pretty good on cleavers as well. So in terms of the type of symptoms that you see in let's say in a broadleaf weed, is you get some distortion and you get some crinkling of the leaf. So you can kind of see it on some of these beans. Nikki, can you find it? Yeah, like even here you get kind of this type of distorted growth here and crinkling. So that's a symptom of, and that one's actually, yeah, been hurt quite badly. So that's a pretty good symptom of peroxysulfone. And peroxysulfone works on the emerging seedling. So it, you know, it shouldn't survive, but you know, some with a soil applied herbicide, they're fairly inconsistent, so they may survive. The other neat sort of symptom that you get is that the midrib of the leaf actually, it shortens. So you get kind of this drawstring effect, and then you get a notch at the edge of the leaf. So a stinkweed cotyledon will look like a mustard cotyledon. So that's a symptom of injury. And so if you're getting some injury like that, it's probably not going to be competitive. It's registered in wheat now, corns and soybeans. Tolerance in peas is good. Some guys are trying on the lentils. Seeing some injury with it this year though. So we'll see expansion of this in the future though. Any questions about peroxysulfone? In the oats? Yeah, typically, yeah, there's a good one right there.
Well, the first leaf, kind of chlorosis, then eventually necrotic tissue. You can see just a tiny little flat there.
Yeah, and if you were to dig some of these up, the root growth isn't that good. It's kind of like you see, not quite the swelling that you get with the ethylfluralin, but the root development is quite poor. So again, depending on what will happen in the year, they might not amount to much. So sometimes we've seen where, gee, that's not very good wild oat control, and then as the summer progresses, it gets better and better and better. So.
And also some symptoms on the corn
yeah.
as well. Some, I guess, purpling. Here it's pretty, you see it pretty prominent.
Yeah, so it's the first time I've ever seen peroxysulfone injury on corn, because I've never worked with corn, so this is the first.
Now is that just like preventing photosynthesis though? Because it's a buildup of sugar, right? Is it purpling?
Well, those are anthocyanins, so
yeah.
so those are just showing that it's interfering with photosynthesis, yeah. And you're not getting the chlorophyll, production that you would normally get. It really works on fatty acids, so farther along in the chain. So it's almost like Avidex works on fatty acid synthesis, the group 1s work on fatty acid synthesis, and the group 15s work on fatty acid synthesis. It's just different ways along that pathway that they work on.
Okay.
Okay.
And so it's just not able to metabolize
yeah.
it, and then
yeah.
that's where you see that.
Yeah.
Because
yeah. Yeah.
It's like
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Product kind of works is it works on the cell membrane in the plant. So what's going to happen is the cells are going to burst, and all the liquids and solutes are going to just run everywhere. So you're going to kind of see some like water soaked lesions on the plants, and then eventually necrosis, and then death of the plant. So here, just where this orange stick is, you can see some chlorosis, necrosis on the leaf margins here, and then very prominent damage on the corn, kind of just the purpling symptoms again.
Got a mouse?
And there should actually be a good picture in your book of red root pigweed as well from this product. So, and it's registered in soybean and potatoes.
And peas.
And peas.
Fall applied in
Okay.
peas, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the product?
Flumioxazin. Valterra is the trade name.
And what group?
Group 14. It's a little, so in terms of residual activity, heat is short-term residual, flumioxazin is about 6 weeks. Sulfentrazone is season long. Okay. And flumioxazin has slightly better wild mustard activity on the mustards in crop. Okay. But it's soil applied as well.
So this one we're looking at pyroflufen and MCPA. So pyroflufen is also a group 14, so that's the same as the previous one we looked at. To get alone pyroflufen, not the greatest activity, but together with MCPA, it's synergistic, so some really good effects, and it's soil applied before peas, and kind of similar symptoms as saflufenicil or heat, so they're all kind of showing the same. And this product also has really good activity on kochia, so when thinking about herbicide resistance, kochia is a huge problem on the prairies, so this product that's really good in terms of both glyphosate resistant kochia especially.
Okay, so it has no soil activity, the pyroflufen, so it's like carfentrazone. Okay, so it's a burn down product. And so what you're basically doing is you won't see symptoms on here. You might see some MCPA symptoms on the beans, but you know, it's registered before peas, it's registered before cereals.
Is this an old product?
Pyroflufen is new to us, but it's been around a long time. I've looked at it off and on and couldn't find a use for it. I'll quickly tell the story. New Farm was selling Clean Start, which had carfentrazone and glyphosate together. They decided to develop pyroflufen for themselves, and pyroflufen and carfentrazone are similar. I looked at products like this in flax, and the tolerance in flax was good. MCPA tolerance in flax is pretty good. When I mix them together, I just smoke the flax. So there's synergism between those two products. So New Farm's figured that out, and that's why some of this is getting to the market. So this will be expanded, and we'll probably see pyroflufen in more mixes in the future. The label will be expanded to include more crops, like flax in the future. Yeah.
Everest,
Okay.
low rate.
You want to talk about it or you want me?
You can do.
Okay, so this is Everest applied. It would be, it's really to show the residual damage that you would get. Now it's been reasonably dry, so we're not really seeing that. But what you would typically see on peas would be, after a rainfall, you'd start to see chlorosis on the new growth, and you'd start to see shortening of the internodes, okay? And it'd be fairly dramatic. It would show up on side hills first, and actually, I did fix it so it would work that way because there was a chlorotic looking plant. So that's what it would look like, okay? So there's your symptoms right there. If you were to get injury. Now on the mustards, you can see the typical little group 2s on here, I think. I've stepped on a lot of this, so we were seeing a bit of that. There's injury on the corn, and yeah, it's not all that bad. Actually, mustard and canola has a bit of tolerance to it, so you don't see as much injury as if it were a wetter year. And of course, this is a half rate to signified carryover, but that's the type of symptoms you'd get. And was the Odyssey applied post-emergent?
You know what I mean?
I think it was applied post-emergent. Anyways, you would have saw group 2 injuries over there, but there's some really good group 2 injuries on the mustard in here in terms of the new growth being chlorotic, you know, it's becoming red later on. Just keep in mind, if you have Odyssey carryover, and on your canola, for example, the canola will come up fine. Okay, so if your canola doesn't come up, it's probably not a carryover. It'll come up fine, but it'll stop growth because it'll pick it up through the root. It'll get chlorotic and red within that growing point, and it won't do anything. Okay, it'll just stay there. Is this Sencom?
This is Bentazon. This one.
Bentazon? Okay, Bentazon or Bazagran. post-emergent product only. It's a contact product. It's a group 6, similar to, so in the same group as bromoxynil or partner. Okay, so the injury symptoms are primarily contact. So you can see on the mustard here some browning. It does move a bit in the xylem, so you'll see that it shows up on the margins of the leaves first. So if it moves in the xylem, it moves with the water, and so as the water moves, it congregates at the margins of the leaves because that's where evaporation is. So you'll see similar symptoms on group 5 in Sencor. Okay. What's that? Oh, this is an unknown. Okay. Okay, this is Sencor. So this is one I didn't get to show the last group, and you didn't get to see it. So Sencor is a photosynthetic inhibitor. The symptoms will be somewhat similar as atrazine because it's a triazine herbicide. It's a group 5, one of the few group 5s. And what you see again is this necrosis on the margins of the leaves because it is xylem mobile. And then it'll eventually move towards you know, the center of the leaf, and then will die down. So that's the type of symptoms that you look for. Like an injury on lentils and that, it's really almost a burning action that you get, and a stunting, but and chickpeas, but they should recover.
What group is that for?
It's a group 5. Okay, another group 2 should be seeing a little bit more injury on the. This was put on pre-ice back then, and we didn't get that much rain. You're probably trying to show the symptoms of, if you were to put it on 7.5 grams, that's the actual. But anyways, we're not seeing all that much for symptoms except on the mustards again. So this is really a very good example of group 2 symptoms on a broadleaf plant, okay? So it's acting on that new yellow growth, or new growth, the meristematic. It's turning yellow. That'll eventually turn red. Take a couple weeks for it to die. Okay, you want to do this, Nikki?
This is just 2,4-D, so group 4. So basically what we're looking for with group 4 is epinastic symptoms. So you can see curling epinasty all here. It's pretty easy to tell with group 4. Yeah, just all through out the peas, and I guess here on the beans you can see some cupping of the leaves as well. Basically.
So there's one thing I could add. Do we have any soybean growers and guys are even considering it? Okay, I won't spend a lot of time because you can apply 2,4-D prior to soybeans. Although we have found on Saskatchewan soils we're getting some injury, and the cupping is a really strong symptom of soybean injury from 2,4-D. So in the event you do grow soybeans, we're seeing a lot in Manitoba and Eastern Canada, but I didn't expect that much here. Okay, next one. So you remember the old half-liter, 1-liter rates? This would be a quarter-liter rate, okay? So a fairly low rate. Of course, you're seeing a little bit of, you know, what you'll see is some chlorosis, of course, and then purpling and that sort of thing, and then eventual death. So these are symptoms that you're starting to see, early symptoms. Certainly, here's one that, you know, it's pretty hard to say. I taught a class in pesticides this year, and You know, one of the things I told him on the exams, if I ask, you know, what are the symptoms of a particular group, if you write down chlorosis, you're right 80% of the time. Now, unfortunately, they took me to heart on that, and the questions I asked them didn't have chlorosis as the symptoms, but I got chlorosis a lot of times for an answer. So. Is this an unknown? Okay, so this is an unknown, and that pretty well takes us to the end. Are there any questions? I mean, we know what it is. You've got to figure out what it is. And are there any questions? So I think the type of things you want to look at is, what are the symptoms? Does it look like it's contact? Does it look like it's been translocated? If it's contact, you probably saw over there with the gramoxone where you could see, you know, almost the water droplets where it's hit and not much translocation. If you're starting to see some, you know, some chlorosis within or necrosis within the veins, then it's probably being translocated. So, yeah, I think we have 4 unknowns. I did this much faster than the last time, but you'd already been through some of this. But are there any questions? Or yeah.
How do you try to characterize a 3-way active ingredient mix with multiple?
For injury symptoms?
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I mean, trying to sort through. So now we're getting 4- and 5-way
yeah.
mixes, and
yeah. Yeah, it's pretty difficult. You know, I don't know if you saw on the Infinity back there, if they pointed it out, but you could see that some of the wild buckwheat had the bromoxymal type browning, and then some other plants had more of the pyrosulfatol whitening. Okay, and you know, when you mix those two together, you know, they're very distinct by themselves. Sometimes you get separate symptoms, but you get kind of a combination of the two. So I can see what you're saying. It's, you know, perhaps with a 4-way, the best, you know, I haven't really even, that's a good thing to actually for us to work on a little more, is to try to come up with, you know, the symptomologies when you're getting more than one mode of action. Yeah.
So I mean, the manufacturers obviously, because of resistance issues,
yeah.
I mean, and the farmers don't like to mix stuff if they could buy a premix. So.
Right, exactly, yeah. Yeah, so, yeah, it'll be a little bit more challenging, you know, if you're trying to diagnose an issue and that sort of thing. You know, a few things that I've learned over the years too, that, like for example, glyphosate drift, let's say, on lentils, you will get some twisting. You almost get some 2,4-D-like symptoms on it. So you can actually misdiagnose glyphosate injury. I have. You do sometimes get some plant twisting, which isn't atypical, but on some plants you will see that. So that's one thing I wanted to mention. Yeah, I guess just back to your question, the symptom that probably, if you're looking at 3 and 4 ways, is going to be death, I guess. But yeah, it's going to be hard to sort it out. But we should probably look at some of those 3 ways and take a look and see, you know, what type of symptoms. If we are getting, you know, symptoms of all 3 in there. I haven't done that yet, but the new Infinity with Loxapir in it, for example, would be interesting to take a look at.